Camera. Hi, Sally. Nice to see you. Well, not see you, but welcome to the meeting tonight.
Thank you.
Have you got the
There's-
speaker on?
Carol, do you? Where is the speaker? We need to get Carol connected because we need her for quorum. Hello.
I sent her. Oh, there she goes.
Are you good,
Can you hear
Carol?
us?
Ah, perfect. Okay. So, can we establish a quorum, please, Casey?
Yes, I can. Chair Wheeler,
Here.
Vice Chair G.
Here.
Commissioner Dixit is absent. Commissioner Carter,
Here.
present. Commissioner Bedard.
Here.
And Commissioner Crane is absent. We have a quorum of 4.
Wonderful. Thank you. Would either you, Mary Jo, or Casey lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. Casey, will you put up the flag?
Yes, I will. Give me just 1 second. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask for public comments on items not on the agenda.
We do not have any hands raised and there were no previous requests to speak.
Okay, thank you. So let's move to item number 1 on items for consideration, the minutes. Does anyone have any revisions to the amendments they'd like to propose? If not, could I get a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of May 5th?
I so move.
Okay, I'll second. Do we have a vote, Casey?
Yes, Chair Wheeler,
Yes.
Vice Chair G,
Aye.
Commissioner Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner Bedard.
Perfect. Okay. Item number 2, Vice Mayor Meadows, if you would, could you please give us a briefing and update on the survey that was recently completed?
Sure. And I don't have any slides, and there's nothing worse than talking about numbers without slides, but I'm going to do it anyway. But I am going to tell you where you can actually, if you haven't already, and I'm sure Chair Wheeler, you've probably looked at this, but in the May 10th City Council packet at the very end, there's 2 informational items, one of which is about the community survey. And so both the documents I'm going to talk about are included. Oh, there comes Cindy. Hi, Cindy. So both of the documents I'm going to talk about are included there. And so what you will see is, and I give you a little background. I actually do have a market research background in my profession. I was trained as a market researcher, but the worst thing anyone on city council can do is try to meddle in what they think they're good at. And so I was on the subcommittee with Council Member Weinberg, but we had our professionals, Godby, put together the research, and also, of course, the consultant that helped do the research and the ballot question that we were asking them to consider. So there's two things you'll see in the packet, May 10th at the end. It's a very long packet. It's over 600 pages. So you'll see the questionnaire that we asked, and it was done by phone and online. And there will also be a summary of survey results. So, and essentially, there were 369 people who answered the survey. About 289 were online and 80 were by phone. And so when you look at the survey, if you're familiar with market research, you'll see this is actually the interviews, the questions that were given in the survey are actually the guide that the interviewers used. So you'll see slightly different instructions, whether they were giving the interview over the phone or whether someone was doing it online. So you'll see exactly what the interviewers were seeing when they conducted these interviews. So we got a total of 369 residents. And this was done between March 21st to March 30th, which looking back is kind of an interesting time. That's very soon after Russia invaded Ukraine. And so I was interested to see how that might influence people's feelings, but actually, to my surprise, not everybody was gloom and doom. But so there was specifically, they asked some general questions about Los Altos. One of the first questions was, how do you feel? Are you satisfied or dissatisfied? And within each of those, it's either very satisfied, somewhat dissatisfied, or very dissatisfied about the quality of life in Los Altos. And actually, we had a very good response there. 90.4% of respondents indicated they were either very or somewhat satisfied. And if you look at the report, and again, my apologies, I don't have pie charts and everything, but I'm just giving you a brief update. You'll see that there was almost, what did they say, 10 times more people who were satisfied, whether very or somewhat, compared to those who were dissatisfied. So that was nice. In fact, Gabe said he hadn't really seen scores that high before. The next question was along the lines of, how satisfied are you with the City of Los Altos job performance? And again, this was very high, 81%, not quite as high, but 81% were either very or somewhat satisfied with the job performance that the city is doing to provide services. So now they were really testing what the residents' likelihood would be to support putting a potential bond measure on the ballot this November. And they were asked a series of questions about services and infrastructure that could potentially be provided. And so again, I'm just looking through, you'll see all this information in the report. It's a 3-page summary of results report. And basically, the respondents identified a number of priorities. What is shown in the survey report is the priorities that scored the highest. And I think basically the way they've set up the scale is if that 1 counts as neutral and anything over 1 had greater support and anything less than 1 was less than neutral, but on the negative side. So one I believe represents neutral, if I recall. I actually haven't seen the raw data, and so I actually have the same information that you will have if you look at the information in the May 10th council packet. So the results summary shows us all the statements about services and infrastructure that could be provided, that people were not neutral, they were positive beyond neutral about. And the bad news is that none of the library statements, and 5 of the 20 statements tested had to do with the library and various services. And none of those, and the only ones that were shown in the summary are ones that tested the highest. So the library, none of the 5 of the 20 statements that were tested show up in the as the highest results. And the other thing that I want to point out is, despite what did show, so let me just read the summary. The survey results indicate potential support for a future local funding measure. And there was a slight majority that indicated they would either definitely or probably support. And that was just a hair under 51%. The issue is there's plus or minus 5% in the statistics. And so that margin doesn't really, you don't have a comfort level with that margin, but which is not to say that we can't do it. It's just to say that this November's timeframe was really tight and next to impossible anyway. And so the consultants made the recommendation that we essentially look at this beginning in January and take our time to do it properly, because trying to rush through, and what we tested specifically was a utility users tax. And so they see room potentially to work on this, but not in a hurried manner and not with a margin essentially 51% when you have plus or minus 5%, and you have to get 50% plus 1 to pass a general utility users tax. So that is my hopefully brief and maybe a coherent explanation of what the report and the questionnaire will show you. I think it was probably good because we can regroup in January, and I think economic and social and geopolitical conditions will be very different, hopefully better next year, and allow us to do more planning for the 2024 general election. So, but I know regards to the library, I don't know the specifics, but it didn't show up at the top of the list that really motivated people towards this bond measure that was tested. So there's many mechanisms we could have tested. We simply tested one, and that's the summary. So I can take some questions. Yes.
I have a question, and Carol has a question. I know that the city is not going to get the raw data in order to protect the privacy of the individuals who responded to the survey. But I'm wondering if it's possible to query Godby and ask them where in this list of city facilities that people thought it would be, they'd be willing to have their taxes possibly increased, where the library showed up.
Yeah, and I don't have anything that showed up other than the ones that showed up better than neutral. Again, if my remembrance is that 1 means neutral and higher than 1, therefore is better than neutral. But interestingly enough, if you look at this summary, and I'm sorry, I'm looking over this way because I'm looking at it on my other device. So what I did see, but not necessarily uniformly, but I think there was a trend to not really be very excited about infrastructure, but to be more excited about services that were provided. So if you want, let me read you, they said the top 5 in particular had positive responses of 66% or higher. So if you're interested, I can read you what those top 5 were that scored the highest. Okay, so and if you pull the summary out of the council packet, this is page 4, bottom and page 4 I'm looking on. So, well, this is kind of contradicting what I said, but not exactly. So Los Altos fire stations, this is the highest scoring one. And by the way, fire stations scored higher than police or fire adequacy. Resilience scored higher than police, but you know that might be wildfires. But Los Altos fire stations have not had adequate updates. This measure will ensure that they are operational during earthquakes, wildfires, and storms. So again, this is focused on the operations. The next one is also public safety. For victims of heart attacks, strokes, accidents, and other emergencies, seconds can be the difference between life and death. This measure will help ensure fast emergency response times. So again, that's really service focused. Number 3 is none of the money raised by the measures would be used for city administrator salaries. I guess that's always a popular one. The measure will update and maintain police facilities and technology so we can maintain 911 dispatch, crime fighting, and investigation services, keeping neighborhoods safe and ensure operations during an emergency. And then the final one in the top 5, there's a few other top ones, but these were the top 5. The measure will give Los Altos control over local funds for local needs, allowing Los Altos to be self-reliant and requiring that our tax dollars are spent for Los Altos residents. No funds can be taken by Sacramento. So 2 of those are kind of ones that are always popular with voters. 3 of them are more specific to Los Altos. And even though they touch on infrastructure, they're really focused on the services that can be provided through that infrastructure. So
Thank you. Yeah, that's very interesting. Carol, you had a question?
Yes, I have a question. Sally, did you say that this was a sample of 369 people?
indeed, yes.
Do you consider, you're a marketing person, do you consider that a representative sample? It seems very small to me.
It actually is a fairly robust sample from my days. I used to do market research in the pharmaceutical industry, and 369 would be a very large sample size. Godby, I assume they look at our demographics. They try to figure out whether they're aiming, what kind of demographics they're aiming for, and they know how to do market research. So if that was actually, I think, more than they expected to get, but they were trying to balance the phone versus online. It's very hard to get people. So they ended up with more online than they needed for the robustness of the results, but that was because they could really, who answers their phone and does these surveys anymore, right?
I do.
I sometimes do too, but that's just, just me.
I'd love to hear about my auto warranty and all that stuff. Does anyone else have questions for the Vice Mayor? Okay. Well, this was very helpful for us to have a sense of where the library comes in people's assessment of what we need to spend money on for services or infrastructure. And I'm not sure really, I'd have to go back and look at the questions specifically about the library to see if they were more concerned about services or infrastructure. I think the services are outstanding. So
I can read you the 5 library questions that, and I should say they're not all questions. These are really features of the measure. So there's different features about, the fire station to ensure operations, police for this, parks for that. So there were of these 20, the 5 I mentioned were for the library. I'll read those to you. And the way they asked that specific question for the library issues were, now here's a list of the city services and facilities that could be maintained with the funds generated by the measure. For each of the items below that the funds could be used for, would it make you much more likely, somewhat more likely, somewhat less likely, or much less likely to vote for the measure? Okay, so now I'm going to read you the library's specific features that they described. And by the way, they randomize, so there's 20 of these, and each person who does it gets the features in a different order. So the order I'm reading it isn't necessarily the order that any of this that they got, respondents got it. So provide library facilities to accommodate 21st century programs. Provide interactive learning systems in the children's section of the library. Provide access to key library services and facilities 24 hours a day. which we're going to pilot anyway. So, but that was in there. Let's see. Provide private library work study areas and provide additional youth library programs. So those were the library specific features. But I do want everyone, again, this was a specific survey around utility tax measure. And in the context of all the features that were asked, the library didn't sort of rise to the top. That doesn't mean there isn't a different method to get there, but it didn't look like, at least in this context, that these were compelling arguments.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone have in here?
From my experience, when we were doing redevelopment, and the surveys that came out, really it was very much a Maslow's hierarchy type thing, in the sense that people wanted new library facilities, infrastructure, services, in as much as safety was involved, be it locations of the children's library, ability for people to monitor the children's library. I mean, just the basics, and really more survivable, I shouldn't say survivable, but more lower on Maslow's hierarchy. And I don't think that this survey really didn't go there from that perspective as the library thing did. So, I mean, I applaud the city and Gabe for going out and, getting the data. I personally didn't respond. I wish I had. I was very bummed that I didn't, but I'm one of those people who don't answer the phone. And it is a good survey number in terms of the survey size. That's good. So anyway, thanks very much, Sally, for the update.
Right. And then, if as anyone reads the information, you can always email me a question or something, but I actually have the same information you do. So there's nothing, like, I haven't seen the raw data. So I basically am working from the same set of information. So.
Elaine?
Yeah, is it okay if I talk?
Yeah.
All right, I actually responded online to the survey, so I'll just give you, and of course, when it comes to library, I know a lot about the library, so it's not very good to survey me. The implication I had was that, would you spend more money to get more? The implication was that there wasn't enough money to give the services to the library. And so would you spend more so that you could get more services? And it didn't sway me because I know there's enough money to give the services. So I'm not sure that what your respondents responding to this were actually telling you. I took it as, do you think the library doesn't have enough money to give you the services you want?
Well, it's certainly not a library specific survey. And so the library is thrown in with all the other services that, that the city was focused on, whether they be fire, police, parks, etc. So in that context, when you compare it against basics, public safety, it almost by definition, it's gonna, but that's why I'm saying the context of this survey is not, it was around a very particular kind, the utility users tax, and was around, and this was a general, potentially a general tax, and that therefore all these services could be provided. And it's really no surprise that, library would not really be as important as fighting wildfires and keeping us safe, during the season. So, but that doesn't mean that in a different method for funding the library, that there can't be a lot of support. We know there are passionate library people in this town. So it just means that if when we look at this again, we go down this general tax measure that's going to cover a variety of different city services, that is not necessarily going to do what we need for the library.
I think you missed my point. My point is that I don't think the public thinks that they're not getting as many library services as they want because the library doesn't have enough money. And that was the response to the survey. I think you can't plead poverty.
Well, I don't know how, I'm surprised at how many people, like my husband got a text about it. I said, no, you shouldn't do the survey. He's like, why not? I said, no, you're married to me, right? But I know I'd be disqualified. He technically wasn't, but the general population isn't necessarily, does the general population understand that NCLA, provides extra money for services? I don't know that non-passionate library people know that, and whatever. But again, this wasn't library focused. It's not surprising to me that if you compare it to all these things, maybe it doesn't come out as well. I think that there are other tactics and avenues, again, depending on what we see next year when we regroup and begin to look at what strategies might be better for the city for some of these public safety issues. We can then really talk about the library, because again, there's so much passion and there's so many folks who might have the resources who might be willing to, have their name on an edition or whatever. So I don't see it as nobody likes the library. It's just that in this context, it was very hard for it to rise to the top.
Cindy, you had your hand up.
Thank you. And I was part of the redevelopment task force, as you all know, and we did use Gabi for our survey. And we got about the same amount of people responding, which again, Gabi thought was really wonderful. And since we were looking for a tax initiative, and it was all about the library, we were very close to being able to pass that, but not close enough. It would have taken a lot more effort on our part. So it was a real close window. But so when I saw the results for this survey, I felt like I was back home, that I could read the results. I could see what was going on. I trusted Godby, and it really makes a difference what kind of questions are asked. So I don't think it's really appropriate for us to pull out of this survey the questions about the library and make decisions based on that, because it's a whole different angle. It's a whole different context to look at.
I completely agree. That's a more eloquent description than I was offering, but yeah.
And would you agree that perhaps what we are interested in is not more money for services, but the building itself? That's what we're interested in. And I just wanted to see, really if there was any, information that Godby provided you when they discussed the results of the survey that might shed any light on, that wasn't contained in any report anywhere.
I would have to reread the survey because it has been a few years, but it is pretty much what Pierre said, that people were looking at the safety of the individuals in that building. So could they get out quickly? Were the children safe? Because right now the children have to go out of the library to get into the restrooms, and adults can easily go into the children's room, although those librarians have eagle eyes on single adults. So it was things like that we looked at, because we also determined that they weren't interested. People would not be interested in passing any kind of spending if it were about services, because the services are really outstanding. It's the size of the space that was the troublesome part.
Yeah. Okay, Pierre?
We also were looking at bonds, I believe, which had a much higher gate, right, in the 60, I forget what a bond needs to be, but it's higher than just a gas or a utility tax.
Well, it just depends. That's not necessarily what, I mean, the utility tax would lead to us purchasing issuing bonds. So it's it's the same. It's a different threshold, whether you need 50 plus 1% or you need 2/3. So it's all pretty complicated, but anyway, so I do have another meeting starting. So if that's okay for now, then I will drop off. And again, if you have follow-on questions, I can answer them. But as I said, May 10th, the very end of the very long package, you'll find the survey questions and the summary that I was just reporting from.
Thank you so very, very much. We really appreciate it.
All right. Have a good evening, all. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay.
I would like to comment that I thought Cindy's remarks were very, very appropriate.
Mhm.
I agree with what Cindy said very much.
Thank you. Okay. Item number 3 on the items for consideration is an item that was asked to be put on the future agenda, and it's new homeowner and resident outreach efforts. Discuss strategies to promote library services with new Los Altos homeowners and residents. And I will be the first to admit that I don't remember who asked for this to be put on the agenda here.
Julie and I
Oh,
had asked for this, and it was very basic. The concept would be that anyone who purchases a home within the district, who is within, who gets the parcel tax, would automatically be issued a library card or some, I don't even know whatever you want, a packet about the library, a card, a pre-populated card. But the concept would be, since the assessor sends all this stuff out and the county it is a county activity, is there a link between the two? And that was it. That was basically the concept to try to bring forth to see if that's a possibility of putting library information into tax envelopes and discuss whether that in fact is wise or not. That was it. That was it.
you have comments on that concept? Steve?
Okay, well, first of all, good evening, everybody. My dog was just barking incessantly, so I think I got the question. So the marketing idea. So we couldn't just automatically issue library cards. Great idea. It's just for a lot of reasons we couldn't do that part. And we have bandied about the idea of providing the information about the library with new resident home packets. And I just sent an email to Jennifer asking where we were on that, because we had talked about this like years ago. And I can't remember where we left off. So I'm trying to find that information out for you. Yeah.
Great. Maybe we could bring that to next month's meeting. Would that be okay, Steve? Maybe you could update us.
Yeah, I'll collect what information I can. And if I'm not here, I'll make sure whomever is has the appropriate information.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you. The concept was not to come up with a hard and fast solution. The concept was really to explore the channel.
Yep.
So whatever you do is
Yes.
great, Steve.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
It would be maybe, I've recently been driving around my neighborhood and see new families move in and have thought, gee, whatever happened to Welcome Wagon? And I'm probably really, really dating myself because maybe no one knows what I'm talking about, but it was kind of a really nice gesture on the part of the community to welcome new people into the community and provide some general information that would be of use to any resident that moved to a community. And I would think that certainly information about the library would be right at the top of that list. I'm wondering if this is something that we perhaps could explore with Los Altos and Los Altos Hills and see if they, I don't know if they are if the city is notified of new people buying properties in the city, and if if they are, if that information could be made available. And maybe there are a number of the commissions that might want to jointly participate in, the youth commission, the senior commission, the public arts commission, to just provide information that could be put in a packet that could go out to people who move into the neighborhood or into the city. It's I don't know, it's an idea. And Pierre, if this is something that the services subcommittee wants to think about working on, maybe that's something we could, talk more about. You could maybe talk with Gabe about it. I really don't know what information the city gets. Mary Jo, can you provide and shed any light on what info the city gets about new residents?
I can't right now, but I can find out
That would be great.
and bring that back next month. I'd be
Okay.
happy to do that.
Okay, super. Well, that's two things we could add to the future agenda just as a follow-up next month to see, because I think it's a nice idea to help new people learn more about their new community. Do we have any questions or comments on this topic? Elaine?
It reminds me of what the Chamber of Commerce does. Do they do it every year? At least they used to do it. They have a booklet that describes both communities and the services in both communities. Maybe we can add even to their packet.
Do you know how they distribute that? Is it just something you have to go get, or do they have an outreach to new people?
I think it used to, maybe it doesn't exist anymore, because I certainly remember Welcome Wagon also, but I think it used to come in the mail.
Okay, well, maybe we can follow up with Kim Mosley to see what they're doing.
If they're still doing it, I don't know if they're.
Okay,
I can check in with the chamber as well.
that would be super, Mary Jo. Thank you.
Sure.
I was just thinking that when I go on the Los Altos city website, it's organized in such a way that it's all about various departments and committees, etc. I'm just wondering if perhaps could be a section of the website that's focused on services that we offer our citizens or our residents. And that basically, instead of a packet that goes out to new residents, perhaps just a little flyer that includes that part of the website that they can then go to and learn and explore. It could be for emergency services. Here's your contact information. For the library, here's what we offer, and here are some numbers or people you can reach out to. For fire, for whatever, right? For parks and recreation.
Yeah.
Right now, if I go to the website, I have to search for every single department. And it just seems to me that as a new resident, I'd like to understand the portfolio of services that are offered to me.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. So, Pierre, can you be the champion for this?
Sure, Julie and I will take it on. I'll sign her up for it. She'll be back from COVID soon enough.
Okay, so, oh, got it. Is that what's, does she?
I think, yeah, but I mean, it's something that's very prevalent right now.
I know, everybody's getting it. It's just unbelievable.
She's on the mend.
Good, good. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, so, the next item to discuss is the meeting format. So at some point in the future, it seems like it's getting further and further out in the future sometimes, we're going to have the option, I understand, Mary Jo, so please correct me when I'm wrong. Eventually, we will go to in-person, but we might have the opportunity to have hybrid. So it would be both in-person or remote, depending on your preference. And Mary Jo, could you maybe fill us in on where are we today and, where we think we'll be in the future?
We're still all virtual, all of the council meetings and all of the commission meetings. And from the last, not the last city council meeting, but this was on their agenda. And they basically are saying that it's going to go back to in person, probably after the council chambers are complete, which is expected to be late summer or early fall. And they want to, well, they were talking about wanting to keep a virtual option for people who want to do that. It expands accessibility to the public, but also they are still talking about the possibility of having council members being able to be virtual as well. So the hybrid meetings would take place in council chambers. Once the chambers are finished, they have a whole new system in there that is going to make it much easier to do hybrid meetings. So we don't know exactly when yet. There's still a lot of things up in the air. The chambers have to be complete, and we've got to. Everybody has to get completely trained on the new chambers. Casey went through one of the initial trainings, and I missed it, but apparently it's pretty complicated. So for anybody running a hybrid meeting, got to learn how to do it. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but they are interested in what all the commissions, how they feel about it, how they feel about going back in person, and what the preference for the commission would be.
So do we want to have just a straw poll with the four of us who are here? And then I also think it would be useful and helpful to have our invited guests who also their preference as well. So for the commissioners, could you just state, I think it's easier than just going around, and maybe if you could just state what your preferred form of meeting would be. And can I just call on people to hear? Can you tell us what you think?
I'm going to be a little controversial here. I think we need to go live, and we need to go live quick. I think the onset of Zoom meetings in council meetings, Zoom is great. Zoom serves a purpose, but it's changed the political landscape in many ways that I don't think we understand. People airdropping from, it's not something we have on this commission, but anyway, my preference, live as soon as possible.
And by that, you mean in person, right? By live, you mean in person?
Yeah, at Orchard Room, here we come.
Okay. Melvin, what is your preference?
I actually don't mind having the Zoom meetings. I mean, clearly it allows us more flexibility in our schedules. I think if anything, I would like to have the option of either going in or staying on a Zoom. And I think if that were the case, I would be 50-50. You know, sometimes my schedule just is such that I'd rather do it from home. And other times I like to be in person to be able to see everyone else, provided there's other people in the orchard room.
That's true. Okay, Carol?
Well, I like the Zoom meetings. I think they're very interesting. I think they get the job done. I prefer them. I think I've gotten used to doing Zoom meetings for a variety of activities. So I'll come down on that side. If we have a hybrid meeting, I can live with that, you know. But my preference is the Zoom meetings. I think that what Nelvin said was very to the point of the benefit of them.
Okay. So I'll speak my preference. I'm exactly where Nelvin is. I really do value in-person meetings, and I think they're wonderful actually, because you have side conversations and it's just nice. I like in person. But on the other hand, I really, really love the convenience of Zoom meetings. And especially if you have to go from one meeting to the next meeting to the next meeting, you don't have to drive all over the place. There's a lot less wasted time. So I'm definitely exactly where Nelvin is. Cindy, can I ask you what your thoughts are and what you would prefer?
So I'm going to respond both as a resident and then as a chair of various groups. And so as a resident, I really appreciate the virtual meetings because I do not have to be exposed to other people and vice versa. And then also, I don't have to use my car. So that's a reduction in pollution. So those are my two primary reasons, because I really like having residents being able to call in and at their convenience and at their safety. Now, as a chair and as a president of two different organizations that are connected to the city, I would like to see us grow into the hybrid model. I'd like to have the city do all the learning, and then I can learn from you all how to run a hybrid, because we're doing it at work right now, and it's complicated, and it's very frustrating for people who can't get into the meeting. But the other thing about having a hybrid is that it does require people, the members of the whatever group it is, there has to be a certain number physically at the meeting, because if the public shows up and all of the council is on Zoom, that doesn't work well at all. So I can see us moving into hybrid, and I would support that model. I think the world has changed and that we have learned how to Zoom or whatever technology we're using. And to Pierre's point, I think that while it has given opportunities for non-residents to call into meetings, they are invited in. They don't just raise their hands. And there's ways to monitor that in addition to using technology to monitor it. So yes for virtual meetings and yes for hybrid.
Thank you, Cindy. Elaine?
Well, I can give you a specific situation, since we had a board meeting yesterday of the Friends of the Library, and we have a 9-member board, but there's a huge extended list of people who are welcome to come and talk in the meeting, just as if they just can't vote. So I called it as a Zoom meeting. I said, but if anybody wants to come in person, we could have it in my backyard. And we had, I don't know, about 12, 13 people in my backyard and another 10 or 12 people on Zoom. And this was not a very technical Zoom. This was my laptop computer at the head of the table. That was the whole thing. But it turned out it was about 50-50, but it was probably the biggest attendance we ever had.
Oh,
People liked the idea of being able to see everyone in person again, and everyone who was somewhere else came in anyway on Zoom. So it was quite successful in that respect.
okay, super. Steve?
Yeah, I would like to suggest, I'm an in-person guy. I love getting out to the libraries and seeing people and seeing how everything's going. So I have kind of an ulterior motive to talk with staff and things like that. But I do like the idea of having all future meetings at Elaine's backyard.
I'm going to put you down as unresponsive. So Mary Jo, oh, well, no, let me go to Heidi. What do you, I know you're standing in for Bryant and who's standing in a way for Rose, but I don't know. Do you have thoughts about what might be preferred?
Right. Yeah, I feel like I don't really get a vote here, but I think Bryant is ready to go back to in-person from what I hear from him.
Okay. And it's kind of cheap, I think, because they're already there.
Yes, it's easy for us.
Oh, no. Okay. And Mary Jo and Casey, what are your preferences? Mary Jo, what do you think? What would
Well,
you?
it's funny because since I've been doing this, it's all been virtual. So many of you I have never met in person. I like being in person, but I do also like the flexibility of being able to be home right after the meeting, as opposed to after my commute home from a meeting. So I do like that flexibility. One thing to keep in mind is if we go to a hybrid model, the orchard room may not have the technology that we need, and we may have to be in the community center or council chambers. And I know that's not preference, but it's something to keep in mind. I don't know what the library has in terms of the technology. At the community center, we have a big mobile unit that that has a camera on it with a big screen that can do hybrid meetings. And then they're doing the whole council chambers is getting set up for that as well. So I don't know what's in the orchard room, but that's just something to also keep in mind.
Correct. Casey?
Well, the night before I went into the hospital to have my now 2-year-old son, I was at a park meeting that went until after midnight. So I can tell you that I very much appreciate having the meetings from my dining room. But I think I echo everyone who says it's nice to be in person. And I do appreciate that it is easier for many residents to access this kind of meeting, but I like the kind of resident engagement you get at an in-person meeting. I think that it can be a little bit more extensive that way. And so I think what we're doing now, Parks and Recreation Commission did this last month, you guys are discussing it now, is that Mary Jo and I are just going to pass this on to the city manager's office and the city clerk's office. They're gathering the information, the preferences from all of the different commissions, and they will compile all of that in a report for council.
Okay.
So right now we're just going to submit it for consideration, essentially.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. So I'm going to just kind of go through it quickly to make sure I captured everybody's thoughts. Pierre, you would prefer in person. Nelvin, you would prefer to have the option for hybrid so that you could do in person or Zoom. Carol, you prefer Zoom. I prefer hybrid. Cindy, as a resident, prefers Zoom, and as a chair and a president of organizations, she prefers hybrid. Elaine prefers hybrid. Yeah. Steve likes in person. Heidi, speaking for Bryant, prefers in person. And Mary Jo prefers hybrid. And Casey, hybrid. Okay. All right. Thank you. So now we go to, does anyone have any questions or want to comment at all? Or we can move on to the next item. Okay, so the next items are our partner updates. Cindy, could you update us on the NCLA?
Certainly. We have not had a meeting. It has been incredibly difficult to get 5 people into even a Zoom meeting because 3 of our members are council members, and their calendars are just packed full. So I just recently got the latest list of possibilities from Angel Rodriguez. And it looks like we might have it towards the middle or end of June. And as I've mentioned to you all before, as soon as we settle on a date, I will let you know through Mary Jo and Freddie, and Mary Jo can make that announcement. And as I have also mentioned in the last couple of meetings, I have asked to have your topic put on the agenda.
Okay, wonderful. And Nelvin would be making that presentation. Correct,
Okay.
Nelvin? Yes, okay. Thank you. Any questions, anyone? Okay. Elaine, can you give us an update on Friends of the Library?
We have a TV in the background, so I hope you don't hear it. Let's see, we have our annual meeting coming up. It's the last Sunday in June. It's always a potluck dinner, and we're having it at the History Museum. At the annual meeting, we elect new officers. We award Super Friend aprons to people who have volunteered in the past year over 100 hours. And actually, we invited the History Museum to come and make a little presentation about their fundraising drive to replace their new permanent exhibit. So that's what's going on there. It's always a really social, fun event. It's a potluck dinner and everyone gets to see everybody again. We had a sale last month. The sale earned about $13,000, which is, it's pretty typical for May. May, everyone's mind is on something else and school year is finishing. It's one of the smaller sales, and November and May are the 2 small sales, but we did make 13,000. We had 19 teachers sign up for the Books for Schools option, and I think about 15 came and received about $1,700 in books for their classrooms. If you don't know what the Books for Schools is, it's we have a designated fund in the Friends of the Library where you can donate money to pay for the books that teachers need for their classroom. So with that money, we pay that fund pays the sale for the books. Teachers can come and select any books they need for their classroom. And that's for any publicly supported school. So that sale was fine. And thank you, Freddie. Really, very much due to Freddie's wonderful support. We will be having our next sale in the community center. For those of you who weren't up till 11 p.m. at the meeting, there was some opposition to this, and Freddie stood up, and I could not possibly have done it as well as you did, Freddie. You have my eternal gratitude to support the Friends of the Library. Anyway, we have at least one sale at the community center. I don't know what will happen after that. I didn't mention at the end of the sale, and this is kind of a telling thing for us. do you know what a Gaylord is? A Gaylord is a big box that holds 4 cubic feet of books. We normally fill, 12 to 15 Gaylords. This sale, we filled 20 Gaylords.
Wow.
So what we see is we're peaking on donations, and we're not selling as great a percentage as what we're getting. And it's just the trend in society, I think. Let's see. Oh, on our move into the library, we have a potential earliest starting date of the middle of June, June 13th, where evidently the contract has been let and work may start as early as June 15th. That is the most positive thing I've heard about it. So in the next 2 weeks, we will start, as Brian needs the space, we will start to move out of the corral in the library. And in the best of all worlds, we might be in the new space by August 1st. That would be lovely if that happened. And we can have the portable taken down. I think that's it. That's all that's going on with us.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Elaine. Cindy, can you give us an update on Lolly?
Hello, everybody. I'm back. Yes, Lolly, we have our next meeting June 14th at 8 a.m. And we just had our spring speaking volumes session. And we want to thank Bryant again for being our MC. He gets all of the technology going for us. Meg Waite Clayton was an outstanding speaker. She looked into the theme was a writer's journey, and she really talked about how and why she writes and where she writes and what inspires her. And she had a slide presentation, pictures that told stories, and then she gave background on it. It was just really excellent. And it has been, the reason why I'm going into this detail, it has been recorded, and it's on both the library's website and on Lolly's website. So if you want to listen to it, I strongly recommend you do. She used to live in Palo Alto. She now lives in the Monterey Bay, the Carmel area, and she continues to write mostly historical fiction and always with a strong woman protagonist. And the question is, why a strong woman? And she said, because that's what I wanted to be when I was a child. So it was very, very fun to listen to her and talk with her. Lolly continues to work on its brand and website redesign. We should get some more information about that at our next meeting. And we are in the planning stages for a fall donor appreciation evening, early evening. We haven't had one now for 2+ years. And we're going to see, usually the History Museum lets us use the outdoor area. So we're going to be talking with them again. And we pair that with our with the library's Science and Technology Week. And this year, what we've decided, we're thinking about doing is that we will have it as 2 separate events, that we will have the donor appreciation event, and then that same week at a different time, different date, that we will have the Zoom Science and Technology speaker. And right now we're looking at a speaker to talk about Alzheimer's, or there was another topic, but it was about the human condition. So as soon as we get that confirmed, I'll be sharing that information with you. And that's my update for tonight.
Fantastic, thank you. Any questions for Cindy? Okay, Steve, could I ask you to do the Santa Clara County District?
All right, let me try to share my screen. Can you see that?
Yes.
Excellent. Is it large enough to read the title? I'll make it a little bigger. There we go. Good evening. And I just wanted to highlight the fact that summer reading is finally here. So it started yesterday officially. So be sure to promote our activities and events. We have registration at Beanstack, as we have for several years now. And of course, the big draw is all the great programming that we have, particularly family and children's programming throughout the library district. And you can see some of those events we have here. And I'm sure Heidi will talk a little bit about what's specifically going on at Los Altos in just a few minutes. June is also Men's Health Month, so be sure to check out the great resources we have at the library for that. We've got blogs, we've got magazines, journals, books, of course. So be sure to participate in that and spread the word that the resources are at the library. It's also a teen bookmark contest right now. So we have until July 31st for teens to submit creative bookmarks, which can be used eventually throughout the county. So be sure to encourage that. We have an exhibit at Milpitas called Her Story Too. So this is a series of displays that are available in the courtyard there. And it looks at some of the stories of the women behind the evolution of law that affects all the rights, all of us, our rights as citizens. So that is from Dr. Chang Chen. So if you get a chance to go to Milpitas, please take a look at that. It is also, of course, Pride Month. So we'll be doing a month-long celebration for that. We will be having events and book lists as always, so be sure to stay tuned. And of course, we are in election season as of today at Santa Clara County Library District's main building. We had the registrar of voters in there today setting up shop as an early voting location, but all of our libraries, with the exception of Cupertino and Campbell, have drop boxes for residents to submit their ballots. And we also have a couple locations that are actual voting centers for both early voting and election day. So that's all that I have. And let me stop sharing my screen.
Okay,
And I'll take any questions if anybody has any.
questions? Okay, thank you.
And I don't know if everybody knows Heidi. I should have introduced her earlier. Heidi is one of the stars of the library system. We worked together in Milpitas for some time, and she is now working as the supervising librarian of children's services at your Los Altos library. So hopefully you've gotten a chance to meet her, and I'll pass it along to Heidi.
Thank you, Steve. It was a very nice intro. Thanks for having me, everyone. It's great to be here. I'm going to try to share my screen. Okay. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to start. We're good. Okay, I'm going to start off with some stats. This is our items checked out in April. We had 43,914 at the Los Altos Library, and at Woodland we had 7,808. We're slowly making our way up again. Items checked in April at Los Altos, we had 40,453. And at the Woodland branch, we had 8,822 items checked in. So you can see it went down a tiny bit since March, but overall we're going back up again. Patrons served online, April 2022, Los Altos had 9,060 and the Woodland Branch Library had 1,547. And our favorite, patrons served in person, so all the people who came in. We saw 8,296 in April at Los Altos and 1,889 at Woodland. So we had a little slump in the winter during the COVID surge, and I think we're making our way back up a little bit, and I expect that things will get better with in-person programming. I think our numbers will keep going up. June, Steve touched on Pride Month. We are going to have some book displays and flyers in the library, so you'll see those when you're in. We're also going to be closed in honor of the new holiday, Juneteenth, on the 19th and on the 20th in observance of that. Summer reading. So Steve told you a little bit about it. We just started yesterday, and this year's theme is Read Beyond the Beaten Path. You can see up at the top of the screen our cute graphics. They're of dragons by children's author Dave Pilkey. We have the link in here. We'd love if you could register. The goal is for everyone to read 5 books this summer and complete 1 activity. And we'll be giving out prizes at the end of summer in August. Thank you to the Friends for providing $5 gift certificates for adults. Teens will be getting they're getting pencil pouches for signups. They're getting $10 Amazon gift cards for finishing, and children will be getting a free book. All right, here you can see just a snapshot of some of our children's events for June. We have a lot going on. We were very ambitious. We have a new part-time librarian, Allison, and we also have a library intern. So with a little more staff, we have some more programs going on. This is my most exciting slide I wanted to share for story time. We have outdoor story times going on Tuesdays still at the Los Altos History Museum. And we're very thankful to them for sharing their space with us because we can't house as many people indoors right now, and we had 85 this week. Some other story times we're adding are a bilingual Mandarin. We just had our first one today with Jean. We had 34 people, and I just want to give a shout out to the Friends. Thank you. Thank you, Elaine and the Friends, for buying us some baby gates. We put them up near the doorways. We keep the doors open and there's a nice airflow. So it makes people feel a little safer, I think. Tomorrow we'll have our first bilingual Spanish story time. That's going to be with our intern, Sylvia, and that will be every other Friday. And then we are adding a Saturday story time once a month for families and once a month at Woodland. Our first summer reading performance is going to be the Fratello Marionettes, and they'll be presenting Aladdin. The next one will be Decorate a Book Bag. That's an annual summer reading tradition in Los Altos. So we're very excited to bring that back. And now moving over to the adult side, we have a presentation on June 15th with Joan Sparks. She's a renowned photographer, and she'll be doing a travel program on the Canadian Rockies. Next up, we have a teen paint party on June 18th. We're very excited to have our teen librarian back, Sarah, so she'll be doing that program in person. And finally, we'll be doing a sweet and savory sides of chocolate with Vanessa Young on the 29th. And I just wanted to highlight that we are doing a program at Woodland for the first time in over 2 years. So we're very excited about that. Our librarian, Pat, will be doing the story time and drop-in craft. Outreach. We did a lot of fun outreach in May. We started going to the farmers markets every other week, the Los Altos Chinese School, the Pet Parade, and the Oak Literacy Festival. And you can check out those cute photos there. That's Chris, the librarian's dog. And finally, this is upcoming outreach in June. We'll continue going to the farmers market. We have the Los Altos Hills Town Picnic and the Chinese school visit. Can I answer any questions?
Yes, I was at the farmer's market today and I thought your presentation, you guys looked really happy to be there. And it was a lovely setup, and the Go-Go Biblio was there. How much traffic did you get? Were you personally there?
I was not, so I'm not sure what today's traffic was. Yeah, I'll have to check in on that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? I can't see the gallery yet.
Let me stop my share.
Okay. Pierre?
Hi, Heidi. I saw the same presentation yesterday, and you did a much better job.
Oh,
Make sure Brian hears that.
thanks.
Okay. All right. Without any more questions, Mary Jo, would you like to give us the city staff update, please?
Yes, so I just have a couple things. While we are on the subject of voting, the community center is a vote center. They're going to be loading in tomorrow, and then it will be open for early voting starting on Saturday, the 4th through the 6th. And there'll be early voting that I believe it's 8 to 5. And then on the 7th, it'll be open, I think 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And that'll be in the Grand Oak Room at the community center. And also I wanted to make sure everybody knew about the Juneteenth event. It's actually being produced by Justice Vanguard, and it is happening on the Hillview soccer field. I expect it to be about 100 people at the event. There'll be a stage and speakers and music. There'll be food trucks, other kinds of entertainment. So if you're interested in checking that out, they will be out there on June 19th for that celebration. And then the only other thing I wanted to talk about is sort of the bigger thing. Some of you may have heard that there has been some reorganization within city departments. The first thing is that Donna Legge, our Recreation and Community Services Director, has announced her retirement. So she will be retiring at the end of September. And actually beginning in July, they will be combining the Recreation and Community Services Department with Parks, which is how most people are used to hearing Parks and Recreation. So we're going to be Parks and Recreation again. And Manny Hernandez, who is now the director of the maintenance service, he's the maintenance services director. He will be the Parks and Recreation director. And I know many of you know Manny, and he is going to come in July and say hi to everybody for that meeting. He'll reintroduce himself to you. So the maintenance services department also includes a lot of other areas of the city, streets and sewer. And so they are taking those, they're basically dismantling the maintenance services department. So Manny will have Parks and Recreation, and he will continue to have facilities maintenance and the fleet. And what is now the Engineering Services Department is becoming the Public Works Department. And so Public Works will be taking, and Jim Sandoval, who is now the Engineering Services Director, will transition to the position of Public Works Director. Public Works is taking on, it will retain transportation and engineering, and it will also take on the Streets Division, which is currently part of Maintenance Services. And then they're creating a new department, which is the Environmental Services and Utilities Department. And Aida Fairman, who is currently one of the city's engineering services manager, has been promoted to the director position, and she will lead that team, the newly formed Environmental Services and Utilities Department. They will be in charge of utilities, the sewer division, and leading sustainability efforts and managing the implementation of the city's new climate action and adaptation plan. And then finally, the last is the Development Services Department. We have a new director there, Nick Zorns, who just started. And they've moved, what did they move? They moved part of his responsibility into the Environmental Services and Utilities Department. So his department will focus primarily on planning, building, housing programs, compliance, state mandates, and the customer service at the front desk of City Hall. So you can see I'm referring to my notes because I know it's super complicated and a lot of moving pieces, and I don't have it quite all straight in my head yet. But anyway, that is all happening officially as of July 1st, the new fiscal year. So that was all of my updates. I'm happy to answer any questions if I can.
That was a lot. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to look over my notes. Does anyone have questions? Pierre.
Me again, sorry about that, Mary Jo. So you sent out an email for public comments. There was an email sent out. I don't know who sent it out. I believe it was you, or maybe it was Casey. But anyway, I'm not sure it works. I got a bounce back from it. So
Oh, the new email address.
public comments lc@ca.gov or whatever it was. It
Okay.
bounced. I'll
Okay.
drop an email to you.
Okay, I'll take a look at it again. We did test it and it was working. So maybe I'll send it to you again, make sure that you have the right email address, and we can test it again, make sure that it's working.
But outside of that, great update.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. I did know that Manny was taking over Parks and Rec with Donna retiring, but I didn't know that everything was being reorganized essentially. So that's really good information to have. Super. Any more questions? Okay, let's go to the subcommittee reports. Awareness. We have a question to discuss with the entire commission, and I think maybe it needs to be agendized, Mary Jo, but it's in the subcommittee report. It was a suggestion posed by Bryant, and just as a wonder, just posed as a question of would this be something that would work. It has to do with next door and whether or not the commission would be interested in personally posting on it on their next door neighborhood, whatever you want to call it, information about library services, events, etc. So perhaps we should agendize that as something to talk about in future agenda, but just it's out there. We have an ad for next week on a new software program that'll be fun for ages 9+ for this summer, especially Code Combat, where they can use gaming to learn how to code. And that was something that Bryant suggested we promote in our Lolly ads as a new resource and something that's timely, because school is ending and this program is now available. In July, we're going to feature Libby because it's like having your Kindle, but you don't have to buy the books. They're from the library. So we're gonna emphasize the utility of Libby and how, for travelers, if you're going on vacation, what a great way to have some books to take with you in a convenient format. I will say that, just as an aside, I met with Bryant yesterday, it's the second, yes. Yesterday with the Los Altos Town Crier to investigate what is up with the variation in color in our ads. And I have to say they were wonderful. Kathy Lira, I talked to her about this issue. We had talked about it in the past. She said, give me some time, let me have my production people look at it, my graphics people look at this. And so she suggested yesterday is the day to meet. Brian and I met with them. They have identified that the issue is with the software package we're using to create the ad. And so this is something that I'm going to be discussing with Wally at its board meeting on the 14th, because we know what the resolution of the problem is. And it's a matter of just making the tools available. Also, I asked for their assistance and just advice on our new branding campaign for Raleigh, in that there's a lot of difference between what you do for a print ad and what works in the digital world. And since most of our advertising is in print and the town crier, it's just useful and good information, and we get it for nothing, to have that information to take into consideration when we're, for example, choosing colors, things like that.
You're coming through very muffled, and
you know why? I'm really bad. I put my papers on top of my laptop, on top of my keyboard. It's a perfect place to read from, but it blocks your microphone.
much better now.
Sorry about that. And so that's the report from awareness.
Freddie?
Yes.
I want to ask you if this is the time. Remember, I mentioned to you the request for polling questions that appeared in the town crier. Now, do you want to discuss that now, or that came up after our subcommittee meeting? Do you want to run that through the subcommittee first, or do you want to discuss it with the four of us here?
I think what we should do is agendize it.
Okay.
Discuss at a future meeting, because we didn't notice anyone.
Yeah. Well, let's discuss it in the subcommittee meeting in June too.
Okay.
Okay.
Then, and for the future agenda items, the Los Altos Town Crier is, they are
soliciting.
They're reviving a polling, a poll of the week that they used to do, where they would solicit poll issues that they would do the polling on. And so it's a potentially free tool that we might use. And so we should discuss at a future meeting.
Okay. Let's discuss it in the subcommittee too.
Okay. If you will help me remember that, Carol.
I will.
Okay, and then the infrastructure subcommittee, we have nothing to report on the foldable partitions for the orchard room at this point. Carol, do you want to talk about what your son Craig provided for
yes. Yeah, we have been addressing the issue of noise in the Woodland Library. People complain because the children are noisy. Big surprise. So we came up with a plan with a professional help that was free, and very complete, that a glass wall on one side, as you enter the building, on the left side, running from the entrance to the back, where the door out to the patio is, and going all the way up to the ceiling, that this, with a door going into the side of the library where the stacks are, so that would be on the left side, that this would solve the problem because the glass would be soundproof. The glass would have an aluminum frame all the way around. And the door would have, you would open it with a handle, but it would have a closer that would make it quiet. You know, when it closed, it would not slam or anything. And there would be mullions or caulking. That would be probably an aesthetic decision, more than financial decision. Holding the panels together. There were 5 panels in the sketch. Do you have the sketch to show them, Freddie? The estimated cost for this, you want me to mention that?
Yes.
Is not very great. It's $700 per running linear foot installed. Okay, but it does require that a mechanical engineer needs to take a look at the air conditioning to see if there are any needs for adjustment. That's something that would take someone to, you know, take a look at it, make a decision. This would be an excellent solution. And also it would look very nice. You know, it would look really good. And it would solve the problem. The librarians, there would not be a need for more people. The librarian would have a full view of the entire space. And it would involve moving the computers that are in the path between the front door and the back door. That's about it. So that's our suggestion for the noise problem in Woodland.
And I can try to share my screen. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
These are the panels. He shows it with 2 doors. We don't think you need 2 doors. And this shows the frame with the caulking between each panel, between the panels, and aluminum frame, which would probably look better than having aluminum uprights in between each panel, but that's a matter for decision. And this is a more technical drawing. There's an error here. It says a sliding door. It's not a sliding door. It's a door with a handle. That's it. And this is the layout of the library itself. And you can see where this wall would go. And it really looks good.
And the interesting thing is at this juncture right here, you know, the Woodland Library has high ceilings, but right here where this wall would go, the ceilings are 8 foot. So, and when Carol talked about $700 a linear square foot, that cost adds up to about $40,000.
He says less than 40,000. Yeah, give or take. And the problem is solved. It looks good.
So I think, so this is for your consideration. We will make a formal proposal and present it to the entire commission for their action.
Okay.
So any questions? Should I stop sharing screen? I can't see everybody, but I'm yes, okay. Questions? Okay, let's go to futures subcommittee.
That was Julie, I think. Is Delvin still here?
Yes.
I'm still
Julie has
here.
COVID?
I'm still here, but I had voluntarily resigned from that particular subcommittee.
Oh, that's correct. Okay,
Julie drafted me though, because we met on the our committee, the services, so she drafted me at the end of it.
do you want to report on futures, Pierre?
Sure, big news, huge news. We have the drop boxes, and the drop boxes are being installed at Woodland and down at the main library. Thank you, to Julie, to Regina, to the city. Gabe did a good job of getting everybody mobilized. Mandy's been involved. It's been tortuous, but it's happening. So that's really good. So people will be able to drop their books off and without getting out of their cars, which is a huge deal for people who've got kids and or just, come shopping or whatever at Woodland and downtown. So that's great. Now,
Can you tell
oh, go ahead.
Can you tell us when?
I don't know. I'd have to go back to the email trail. I can barely hear you, by the way.
I think it's your
There.
system. Okay,
Oh, now I can hear you.
yeah, you've got static.
Now I'm going to give another one thing we talked about with Julie, and Julie had this idea, and in meeting with Bryant, was actually giving out headsets for the noise issue, i.e. make it, if you've flown business class, they hand you like a Bose headset when you go in. And the cost, it would not be that big. And Bryant had toyed with this before. It also leads into other areas, which virtual reality being a big piece of it, where we're going to be looking, I believe, in the future side at the use of virtual reality in the library. I mean, Bryant's already got a headset. It's a matter of time before the library starts making it a piece of it. We're also going to do something which is actually a little radical, which is looking at CDs and DVDs and who's using them, why, what other libraries have done as, I hate to say this, but technology becomes obsolescent. There's services that get more popular and services that get less. This is something, especially with the space considerations in the Los Altos main library, that needs to be looked at. It won't get solved with the Friends move, but it's always something, maybe we can provide insight into a problem that Bryant may need to solve. Finally, I had personal use with the laptop kiosks, and we had a discussion about the laptop kiosk, and that was about it. So that was we met, and that's what we talked about.
Fantastic.
But the kiosks, the drop boxes are huge. That's been a long road. Of course, it's not installed yet. Me saying this in this meeting probably jinxed it, but.
Okay. Pierre, is that a report of both futures and services, or just futures?
As you wish. No, I mean, the drop off, I mean, I think, anything that's going to be, we're going to be talking about services is going to be talking about futures just somewhat. Right? Okay. I mean, you advertise services, or we promote services.
Okay, any questions, anyone? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That comes to the end of our items, except for our requests for future agenda items. And I think we have a couple already on the list. Casey, would you mind reading those back to me? Because my 1 megabyte memory cell.
We had one for Stephen to report back on the progress that has been made for new homeowners and residents regarding library services. We're also doing the same thing with Mary Jo on the city side. So those were the two that I have down so far.
And we also had
Poll.
the polling for town crier. The next door conversation.
Yes.
And then we also have a request from Sarah from Community Services in Los Altos Hills. She wants to give a little presentation and talk about they're doing a lot of outreach about indoor and outdoor space needs for the hills. And so we tried to get her on tonight, but couldn't quite do it. So she wants to do that presentation in July.
Do you know research for indoor and outdoor service needs? Is this?
It's space needs. It's
Space.
more about facilities and outdoor spaces.
Is she part of the city staff? At
Yes.
Altos Hills, okay.
Mhm. She's in the Community Services Department.
Okay. Okay, I understand. Okay. All right, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4 different topics. Perfect. Pierre.
Julie, well, this is sort of odd. I don't know how to deal with this, but Julie wanted to put something up about headsets.
Headsets.
I
Okay.
believe she was going to make a proposal to that effect.
Okay.
And the subcommittee was going to approve it and then move it forward. So I hope it'll be ready. We'll know.
Okay.
But somebody else has to say it's okay.
Pierre? Did you
Yes.
say that Julie has COVID?
I know. I don't. I'm not sure totally exactly. I'd be foolish. Don't know.
So as to your point about having another person, okay, having this on the agenda, I would okay that. I mean, I'd vote for that.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Carol, I just wasn't absolutely sure. That's why I'm sort of hesitating on it.
Okay.
So, you know,
she's not well.
but I'll tell you what, I went to, as an aside, I've been going to classes at De Anza, and my, students have gotten it. My teacher got it. It was just, I mean, it's just been
Awful.
Running through the community. I want to let everyone know that I will be missing my very first commission meeting since I was appointed next month. I will be hopefully in Ireland. This is our first trip. So Nelvin is going to be in charge of the meeting, the agenda, everything. So Mary Jo and Casey, if you will be sure to communicate with Nelvin for the agenda, everything, okay? And Nelvin will run the meeting. And so any other business that we need to attend to? If not, it's 8:13 and I wish you all a very good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Night.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.